And I'm going to share my screen. Okay, that is there. Okay, hi everybody, thank you for coming. Maria and Jana, I'm not able to see the Q&A function during the sharing, so if you have any questions or comments, or if you need anything adjusted, please WebEx me directly, not through this event. But thank you for coming. We have special guest Keegan Scott here from the Fulbright Program. I'm going to let him talk, and thank you for coming.
Yeah, great. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Keegan Scott. I'm the Recruitment Officer with the Institute of International Education, who administers the Fulbright Scholar Program, which is ultimately funded and sponsored by the U.S. Department of State. I'm very excited to be here. I have never been to Rhode Island. This is my first time, and so it's exciting to see all things here. I just wanted to first let you know that the Fulbright U.S. Scholar Program, we have a lot to discuss. I know that this is 90 minutes. I'll probably spend about 40 some talking about, obviously the program itself, opportunities to go abroad, but as well as host people and other different Fulbright programs. Additionally, in the next 45 minutes, I can talk about your own interest, and we can figure out programs that might be good for you. So again, this is your time. As Rachel noted, please, if you have a question, I ask you to wait, because fundamentally, I might be able to answer it throughout the presentation. So, all right, with that, let's begin. So to give you an overview of what to expect, I will talk about why, firstly, what is the Fulbright program, why you should consider the program, what are the qualifications and eligibility surrounding the Fulbright Scholar Program, and what kind of opportunities are for you. Additionally, I'll talk about how to submit a strong application, other opportunities specifically to host people, and if you have questions, we will save those to the end. I obviously have ways that you can stay in touch. We have a newsletter and also social media, but I'll get into that later. All right, so a little bit about the Fulbright program. It was established in 1946 by Congress, and as I noted, it is funded by the U.S. government and administered by the Institute of International Education. Hi, welcome. Please come in. Don't worry, I just started, so you're not interrupt too much. We haven't got too deep into things. But just to let you know, the goal of the Fulbright program is to establish this mutual understanding between nations and people, advancing knowledge across communities worldwide. Fundamentally, what makes the Fulbright program different than other programs or other federally funded programs is this idea of cultural ambassadorship. So for a lot of programs, they are looking for folks to explain their project or research or so on. With Fulbright, we're actually looking for people not only to do these projects, whether it's teaching, research, professional projects, and so on, but we're also looking for people to be cultural ambassadors. So that's really key, as we want all facets of U.S. society represented. So getting into that, we understand that diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility are a key part of the program, as public diplomacy is most effective when all folks from the United States are represented. The program itself considers diversity based on race, ethnicity, color, national origin, sex, age, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, religion, geographic location, education, income, socioeconomic status, and other diversity dimensions that I may not have mentioned. So indeed, we want you. That's full stop. No matter your identities and so on, we want all aspects of the U.S. represented. So to give you some Fulbright by the numbers, and a little bit of an explanation of what is Fulbright, I have here what we call the domino effect. So the wonderful thing about the U.S. Scholar Program specifically is it's often the cornerstone of all of the projects. Without the U.S. Scholar Program, we also often would have other programs to bring faculty and foreign students to campuses, as well as encouraging students to go abroad. So to explain that a little bit further, Fulbright is an umbrella term that encompasses a lot of different programs. So when people say Fulbright, if people tell me Fulbright, I don't necessarily know what they mean because I need to know those specifics. And there are two main differentiations between all of our programs. The first one is citizenship. So on one hand, for U.S. citizens, we have the U.S. Scholar Program and the U.S. Student Program. For non-U.S. citizens, We have the Visiting Scholar Program and the Foreign Student and Foreign Language Teaching Assistant programs. In addition to that differentiation based on citizenship, we also have a line that is degree. So for those who are, for those who have a PhDs or master's in teaching experience, you are in the U.S. Scholar or the Visiting Scholar Program. For those who have a bachelor's degree or interested in doing graduate research, you're in the U.S. Student and Foreign Student Program. So really, it's more of a quadrant if you think about it in terms of citizenship and degree. All right, so why should you consider Fulbrights? Firstly, the most often used term by our alums is transformational. It's an opportunity to teach, research, carry out professional projects, or even attend seminars abroad. You of course can foster sustainable partnerships, expand your publishing network, and honestly connect people worldwide as a cultural ambassador, and gain the recognition of being a Fulbright Scholar. We have a vibrant and supportive alumni network of nearly, over 100,000 alums from all over the world who have participated in this program since its inception in 1946. Additionally, Fulbright is family friendly. Approximately 60% of our awards do provide dependent supports, so you may be able to bring spouses or children along with you. In fact, a lot of people do. I will note that dependent, when we use the term dependent, this is those who you claim as dependents on your taxes. So just to keep that in mind, you can't just bring willy-nilly everyone along with you. Yeah, there's parameters. But I will note that even with opportunities that don't provide this additional dependent supports, most countries do allow for family to also join them. So again, we've found that a lot of people, even if they don't have those additional dependent benefits, they bring family along with them because fundamentally, they are in a very spacious apartments based on their their monthly benefits, and they can house additional folks. So that's very common to have those dependents come with you. One of my favorite things about this last point, many Fulbrights go on to have international careers themselves. I don't know if you're familiar with the U.S. soccer star Christian Pulisic. Yep. He played in the World Cup. The wonderful thing about that story, his mother was a Fulbright U.S. scholar to the United Kingdom when he was a child. That's where he learned how to play soccer. So that's a really cool thing. You have these kind of connections worldwide of Fulbrights, making international soccer stars, for example. That could be your dependents. Lastly, Fulbright is supportive. Approximately 70% of applicants talk to my colleagues and I at the Institute of International Education. And of course, while you are in country, you do receive support from the U.S. Embassy or Public Affairs section there, or even the Fulbright Commission. Throughout this presentation, I might say Fulbright Commission. Fulbright Commission is really a special body of folks in country that administer the program. So not all countries have commissions. We have about 49 commissions worldwide, but those are really great resources. They help with orientations, they help you, find housing and even secure contacts in country if necessary. Again, you receive constant support. Fundamentally, we want you to succeed. So we're not just going to let you parachute into somewhere. We have plans. Of course, you have access to Fulbright Scholar Liaisons, of which Rachel is one of them. You might know Liz as well. Those are your two liaisons here at CCRI, and they are happy to help. If they don't know the question, they can say, Keegan, what's the answer? So, by all means, you have support. All right, getting into the eligibility for the Fulbright U.S. Scholar Program, I firstly want to note U.S. citizens, you have to have U.S. citizenship by the time of the deadline, which is traditionally mid-September, before you can apply. So green card holders unfortunately are not eligible, but naturalized citizens are, again, as long as they have that citizenship by that September 15th deadline. In addition to that, we have degree and experience requirements. Most of our awards require a PhD or terminal degree. However, about 25% to 30% of our awards do not require a PhD, and therefore you only need a master's degree in teaching experience. So that's the really great thing, is a lot of community college faculty don't know they're eligible for the program, when indeed they are. As I noted, teaching experience is really key. And so this is what's really valuable, is a lot of projects abroad are looking for teachers. they want to build capacity, and they want to see American higher education, pedagogy in their classrooms. So this is why community college faculty are very important. Lastly, I'll note about Fulbright US Scholar alums. I don't know if anyone is an alum in this room or on camera, but I will say that Fulbright US Scholar alums are eligible to reapply. They do have to wait 2 years after their previous Fulbright US Scholar ended before they can reapply. And I will note there is a preference for those who have not had a previous Fulbright US Scholar award. So indeed, this is why we're always trying to engage all aspects of American society to participate in the program. All right, so to give you an overview of the Fulbright Scholar Awards themselves, we offer about 400 awards every year in over 130 countries worldwide. The awards themselves vary in length from 2 to 12 months. Fundamentally, it depends, as every award is different. Some awards are only 3 months long. Other awards allow you to choose the length of your program. It just depends. But always keep that in mind, that every award is different. Additionally, within these awards, we have different activity types: research, teaching and research, and professional projects. And we even have a special subsection of awards that are 2 weeks in length. And I'll get into that in a moment. And in addition to this 2 to 12 month length, we have what's called the flex option. Now the flex option is really great because it allows you to break up a continuous grant into different segments. So if you can't necessarily commit, I don't necessarily know the leave policy, and that might be a conversation we have, Rachel, about what that can look like. But if you don't necessarily leave, it is possible to do 1 month segments over a 2-year period. So that might be something of use if you're considering the program. I will note at the end of the day, you can only apply to 1 award per application cycle. Now this is really important because a lot of people think they can apply to all 400 awards. You cannot do that. Only 1 award. I know folks are wily, but that's something to note. And I will just say something about the Scholar Awards. This is all applicant driven. So this is you are presenting a project. You are applying to an award which has parameters, and you apply by submitting your idea based on those parameters. So that's something to think about, right? Most of our awards are open to folks in all disciplines. We do have a handful of awards that are specific to discipline. And I'll get into that in a moment. But that's just something that you need to know as we go through this process. So Fulbright Scholar Awards, I'll be using this term quite liberally over the course of this presentation. That refers to all of our opportunities under one umbrella, right? Specifically for faculty, administrators, and institutions. But what's important to know is that there are subsections. Firstly, we have in the research, teaching and research and professional project category, which is 99% of our awards, our general scholar awards, right? Which I'm just going to refer to. But within those scholar awards, we have a subset for postdoctoral awards. If anyone has recently received their PhD in the past 5 years and is interested in doing research, this could be for you. But perhaps more relevant to folks in the room, I know Cassandra used to be been 17 years in the field, 18 years in the field, so who's counting?
Same with her.
Who's counting, you know what I mean? Yes. The Distinguished Scholar Awards are really great because these are opportunities specifically for folks who have had a lot of experience in their field. So if you've had over 7 to 12 years of experience, you might consider yourself for the Distinguished Scholar Award. Now, every Distinguished Scholar Award is different in the sense that they might have different parameters and how much experience they're looking for, or even if they're looking for a title or something like that. It just depends. This is why it's very important to read the awards closely. That being said, I can give you a hint and say that a lot of people, even with 20, 30 years of experience, they don't think they're distinguished. And I tell them all the time, if you're not distinguished, then who is, right? So keep that in mind. If you have over 12 years of experience in your field, this could be for you. All right, so the fun one, the seminars, which I'll get to. As I noted, we do have a special program that's for 2-week seminars called the International Education Administrator Awards. And what's really great about this is that I call this adult study abroad. Now, these fully funded 2-week experiences allow you to travel to one of our 7 countries that offer this particular program. And what's really great is that you do these 2-week exchanges that are fully organized by that U.S. commission, that Fulbright Commission or U.S. Embassy. So it's really cool because you have this entire experience in that way. You do all these sorts of site visits at universities, go to government agencies, do briefings with officials and so on. But what's really cool about the International Education Administrators Awards is that of course you do tours to historical sites and so on. I had a panel a few weeks ago, excuse me, with alums to France, and they talked a lot about the French officials they met on the way, but they also mentioned that the French Commission did a lot of wine tastings, especially during lunch and dinner. So they were in the Bordeaux region, so I guess when in Rome, So chef's kiss, right? C'est la vie. So again, there are a lot of opportunities. What's important to note about this, though, there are parameters because you have to have some sort of relationship with international education in some capacity at your institution. So this might be very limiting to who can apply, but I will note that, again, that staff and or faculty, not only administrators, can apply for that. So faculty are eligible, right, as long as they have some sort of international education relationship, right? If they organize some sort of program or something, it just depends. Now, I will note too about the IEA awards. If you don't think you have buy-in from your administration about internationalization, then you should tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, have you thought about doing this? Because we have seen time and time again, administrators who go on programs, whether this is presidents, vice presidents, provost deans, and so on, who come back and say, wow, I had this amazing experience. I had a lot of Bordeaux, and they came back and they say, how can I internationalize my own campus? And oftentimes it allows faculty to have more liberal leave and leave policies, a lot of Fulbright friendly policies that help enable you to do projects abroad if things are restricted. So again, this can open up some doors. If you're not eligible, you can encourage other people. I know I spoke with Barbara just a moment ago, and she's very on board. I was telling her that she should do this, but again, I don't know, she said she didn't like to travel. I said, well, maybe her colleagues do. So lots of opportunities, right? Okay. So when you're thinking about the other Fulbright Scholar Awards more broadly, right? You want to do some sort of something abroad for that 2 to 12 month time frame. There are many things you should consider as you apply to that one award, right? Firstly, when going through our catalog, consider the country or discipline of interest, right? Because fundamentally, every award, as I mentioned, is different, and this includes opportunities in country, right? So some countries might be, allow you to do anything you want, right? Other countries might have a lot of restrictions, right? The thing about the Fulbright Scholar Program that you need to know is that we are managing over 130 relationships with countries abroad, and they have different priorities and different needs. And that translates into the award itself. So that also, by the distributed property affects discipline, because as I noted, some awards are open to all disciplines, other awards are open to only certain disciplines. So it just depends. But do note that most countries have awards open to everyone and anyone, so keep that in mind. With the discipline-specific awards, I encourage folks to look at these first, because if you apply to a discipline-specific award, you are only competing against folks in your discipline, right? So this is why the discipline-specific awards should be the highest priority, because you can say, okay, yeah, I see this award in mathematics at the University of Budapest, and it's only open to folks in mathematics. Perfect. That would be something that I can do because I'm in math, for example, right? In addition, think about our hidden gems. So I will tell you something that's slightly unfortunate. I cannot reveal the number of statistics, or I cannot reveal numbers or statistics around the competitiveness of the competition, right? That being said, I can give you some heavy hints, and this is via the Hidden Gems webinars. So every year we do 2 Hidden Gems webinars, usually one in the spring and one in the summer. And what's really great is we highlight awards my colleagues and I consider hidden gems, where we can say, wow, have you ever thought about Slovakia for once? Suriname is certainly an overlooked country in South America, right? What about Cabo Verde in Sub-Saharan Africa, right? These are countries that have a lot of potential. They have a lot of interest in hosting people, but just don't garner a lot of attention. So that's another place to look, is our Hidden Gems webinars. And I'll give you another hint. Our webinar archive has all of our webinars from the past 2 years. So you can go and look at the PowerPoint slides from the past 2 years of the Hidden Gems to see what those Hidden Gems were. And you can say, cool, maybe there's a theme, maybe there's a pattern, and I can tell you that there is. So you have fun with that. Global Hidden Gems is what that's called. As I mentioned earlier, if you're eligible for a postdoc or a distinguished scholar award, consider those, as again, you are only applying to folks within those parameters. So, fourthly, think about if you have international connections in mind, right? So the program does not require you to have an international connection of any sort, right? So indeed, we have plenty of folks who come to me and say, Keegan, I don't know anyone abroad. And I say, that's fantastic, because that means you have a lot of opportunities to choose from, rather than when someone comes to me and says, I have someone in mind, and I can say, great, well, you can only look at this award then, right? So it's really up to you the path that you want to decide, your own Fulbright journey. But the point being is that for most awards, you do need some sort of host abroad, right? So that's really critical. And the thing about it is we're providing you with a lot of tools and resources to make those connections. So more and more, we are having even emails, phone numbers in the award descriptions of people at host institutions that you can reach out to say, hey, I'm looking at this award in Estonia, and I see they have an entire list of institutions. They have their disciplines, their fields, and multiple contacts, right? We are moving in that direction, so it's easier for folks to make those connections, because I'll talk about this in a moment. For most awards, you do need that host institution. In addition to that, think about your own state of your career, your field, where you want to go, what's happening in current events abroad. If you have language skills, for example, that can help decide. If you don't have language skills, that's okay. 80% of our awards do not require a language other than English. So again, just a lot of things that you have to think about as you go through our award catalog. But to make things easier for you, especially for our community college folks, we just started this last year, the Community College Faculty Filter. So this is a screenshot of our award catalog here from the 2025-2026 cycle, which ended in September. But underneath the career profile section, you can see here, we have a specific box for community college faculty. So what's really great is over the past decade or more and more community college faculty have been participating in the Fulbright program. At the same time, we have my colleagues at the U.S. embassies and Fulbright commissions abroad who have been speaking to their counterparts at foreign institutions and emphasizing the experience and really the qualifications, the qualities of community college faculty that are valuable for their classrooms. So as this whole education process has been going on, and as more community college faculty participate, it's kind of dovetailed to say, okay, we actually have now, we have come about where we have this selection, this box here that institutions and awards can check. And I'm sorry, let me rewind. We have this box where host countries can say, yes, we want community college faculty specifically. So that's emerged. Last year we had about 119 awards specifically for that mentioned community college faculty. So that's really great. We anticipate that growing. Ideally, one day this will be all of our awards that specifically say we want community college faculty, but of course, change is slow, and we understand that. What's really cool, this past year, we had a specific award for only community college faculty in Denmark. It was called the Community College Faculty Award, and you can work at any of their institutions. The great thing about that opportunity is they have a very similar system to the US when it comes to their higher education system. So they were looking for connections specifically within their own equivalents of community colleges. So there's, hopefully that comes back next year, we'll see in February. But again, this is growing. This emphasis, this need for community college faculty is there. All right, so buckle up because this might be a little bit longer. The application components are critical, obviously, if you want to apply. And say that you've decided your award and all that. What you do is, firstly, you go to the application form itself. This will be on our website, and you have your information. You log in, and this is where you select your award, your country, input information, and so on. This is also where you upload your project statement. Now, the project statement is the core of your project. If you learn anything from today, it's the project statement. The project statement is a 3 to 5 page document where you explain what you'll be doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, right? And this is where you tell the committees, look, this is what I'm doing, this is what I want to do, and this is why it's impactful. I'll give you a hint. In the application review criteria, 2 points are some of the most pivotal parts of the review: feasibility and impact, right? Those 2 things. Obviously, feasibility, it makes sense. How are you going to do it? Especially, if there's a language barrier, right? How are you overcoming that? What does that look like, right? It just depends. But with impact, the thing about impact that I've learned having, been in these peer review committees and so on, a lot of people are very ambitious, which is great. We want people to dream big. But the problem is, if you're too ambitious, it might not seem feasible. So there's a balance that you have to obtain when it comes to this feasibility and impact piece. And I tell you that because there are people who I'm like, I don't know when you're going to sleep. You know what I mean? So you really have to think about that. But really, what can you do? Also about impact. Think about impact in terms of not only what you'll do in country, but what happens when you come back. So what does it look like when you get back to CCRI? What does it get back when you when you come to Rhode Island, right? What will happen? I think people tend to think of their experience only in that limited time frame of that 2 to 12 months abroad, but really you're a Fulbrighter for life. So think about how you can do different connections and so on. There's no right or wrong answer, but that's something to consider as you craft that project statement. Additionally, you need a CV or resume, so it's very standard, and 2 letters of recommendation. The thing about the letters of recommendation, and again, no more than 2, no fewer than 2. One of those letters of recommendation should come from someone who is in your field. The other letter of recommendation should come from someone within your institution, and ideally someone who has evaluated your teaching. So that's, especially if you're doing a teaching project. So that's something to consider as you get those letters of recommendation. Lastly, second to last, the language proficiency reports. Again, 80% of our awards do not require a language other than English. 20% recommend or require a language. This is specifically true for the Western Hemisphere. So if you know Spanish, a lot of the awards in the Western Hemisphere require or recommend Spanish, right? So if you have that language skills, great. If you don't, that's okay. You would have to complete this form though, which is a self-language evaluation to say, okay, yes, I speak intermediate Spanish, right? Here are my qualifications. Or on the other hand, you have to do an external language evaluation where someone can evaluate your, say, Spanish abilities and say, yes, you speak Spanish. Okay, the last part of the requirements are the letters of invitation, the invitation letters. Ooh, gosh, where to begin? So, I noted earlier that most awards require a host institution, right? Oftentimes, the awards will state 4 things about the letter of invitation. It will state whether or not it's required, preferred, optional, or should not be sought, right? It will say that explicitly in the award, right? The thing about that, if it's required, that means you have to talk to a host institution to get the letter, right? If it says it's preferred or if it's optional, you do not need to seek it, but I still would encourage you to do so. If it says it should not be sought, don't seek it, right? A lot of times people say, oh, but can I seek? No, but it says do not seek it. That's what the awards will say, right? The great thing is, as I noted earlier, a lot of awards are providing that contact information if they do require it, right? So sometimes we even have awards, I'd probably say about maybe 30% of our awards are actually at a specific institution, right? So that's really great if you don't have an institution because a lot of our partner awards take the guesswork out of getting that letter of invitation. It may say the letter of invitation is required, but they give you the contact of who to talk to. So that makes your life a lot easier because you can say, oh great, I just need to ask them about what I can do and what I can't do. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions about that later, but we will come back to that. All right, so supplemental materials. If you decide to do a teaching project, you would have to upload a sample syllabi or a course outline, and that syllabi does not have to be for what you'll teach in country, right? We're just looking for your teaching philosophy. So by all means, you can use a previous syllabi. That's totally okay. A reference list. So if you are doing research, we do need a list of references that are the bedrock of your research. Lastly, if you select your discipline in things like arts or architecture or journalism, culinary studies or so on, you have space to upload a portfolio. That is optional, but that still exists. So again, those are supplemental materials depending on what you select in the application. And the great thing about an application is whatever you select, it auto-populates. So you don't have to overthink it. You just have to log in, say, okay, here's my award, here's my activity type, this is my discipline, and everything will populate for you. So don't worry, we try to make it easy. So tips for a strong application. As I've mentioned this entire presentation, read the award description, right? That is the actual agreement between the US Embassy and that host country. So that's the parameters, and they said that, they decide that. So if you want to know what they're interested in, the award says exactly that. Start early. You all are here now, which is fantastic because we are in the interregnum. We are between competitions, right? I'm willy-nilly without life because I don't know what to do during outside of the competition cycle. So the great thing is you should start early by looking at past awards. So if I were you, and seated in these beautifully, very lovely green, I love the olive green that way. The green scheme here is fantastic. But if I were you and thinking of the Fulbright program, I would look at last year's awards. We have that all on our website. So you can search open awards or closed awards. You can search the community college faculty filter. You can search by discipline or country and say, okay, I see these countries had these opportunities. Likely we'll have them again. About 80% of our awards stay the same. The 20% are edited, changed, or cycled out. So that's something to know. And of course, ask your recommenders, right? You obviously want like a solid letter of recommendation. And if you know you're going to apply, reach out to those people ahead of time and say, hey, I'm interested in applying. The competition will open up in February. Can I invite you to submit your letter of recommendation right away? And obviously that gives them, 8 months to submit that hopefully earlier. Use IIE resources. So my colleagues and I are happy to help, right? We do office hours, we do other additional webinars, we have our emails and so on, and we're happy to help you. So whatever you need, we want you to succeed. We want quality projects. So we're happy to answer those inquiries. And of course, we have a lot of information on our website as well. Great. So what to expect when the competition opens up in February for the 2026-2027 academic year. Firstly, the competition usually opens like February 15th. So keep that in mind, usually early February. And the application deadline is traditionally September 15th. If it falls on a weekend, it's usually the day after, the Monday after that weekend. So I do want to note, our application cycle is not a rolling deadline, right? We look at all applications after September 15th. So what happens is come September 16th, my colleagues and I do what's called a preliminary review, where we literally just look at the applications to see, okay, do you have the components? Is anything missing? What's happening, right? And if there are any issues, if anything is missing, we will reach out to you to say, hey, I see that your portfolio is maybe too long, right? People are finicky, people are wily. I said wily 3 times today, right? Hopefully it's like your bingo boards. Because people, you all are very smart, very, very erudite. And therefore, every year we try to break our own application, but somehow people are better at breaking it than us. And so people figure things out, which is great. We love creativity, but we also like to follow the award parameters to make a fair competition. So that's why we do those reviews, to make sure that nothing is out of hand. If you don't receive an email from us, perfect. That means your application is golden, and it goes immediately to the first stage of review. That's the US peer review. Now, I mentioned earlier that in the application, you select your field, your discipline, right? Whichever field you select, that is the committee that will see your application. So that's how that's based. It's a discipline peer review. Within the peer review process, experts in your field will look at your application to make sure it has weight, right, in your discipline, and say, okay, yes, what you did makes sense, it's feasible, it's impactful, we recommend it, right? Or they'll say, well, it's not very feasible, or it's not impactful, we do not recommend it. Either way, you will be notified in December of whether or not your application moves to the second round. Your application, if recommended, goes to the in-country review, right? This is where Fulbright commissions and U.S. embassies, specifically the public affairs sections of U.S. embassies, decide to select to make you an alternate or the non-selectees for their particular country, right? And this is, again, that in-country review follows the same review criteria as the peer review, but it has the lens of what's happening in-country. That list of selectees, alternates, and non-selectees is sent back to the U.S. Fulbright Foreign Scholarship Board here in D.C. for ultimate approval, and then you'll be notified anywhere from December through June. Now, I'm sure you're probably saying, wow, Keegan, December through June? That's a long time frame. You have to remember, the Fulbright program is a conglomeration of 130 plus partnerships with countries worldwide. For those who have any international experience, you might know, time means different things to different countries, right? So keep that in mind as you apply, right? So indeed, every year I would probably say about 80% of people know by early to mid-spring of their final decision, right? It just depends. Every country is different and how fast and how slow they move, right? I also note for a handful of our awards, a very small subset of our awards, they might have special parameters around visas, requirements, and research requirements. So there might be an extra layer of bureaucracy as they do the evaluations. So that would be noted in the award. I can only think of a handful like Tanzania, Saudi Arabia. I think those are the only two examples really. But either way, if you are selected, you have an option to accept or decline the award. Those are the two options you have. You cannot defer. So unfortunately, that's not possible. You have to, if you declined it, you'd have to reapply, right? So that's something to note. What happens is if you are selected and you accept, we have what's called a pre-departure orientation. So we have a virtual one, usually in the summer, after the application cycle concludes. And sometimes a lot of our countries are going towards this. We're doing in-country orientations as well. So your embassy, your commission, they might host some sort of event. Just fun fact, I was a Fulbright US student to Bulgaria, and we had a 2-week orientation actually. So we had some of the longer orientations. And that was really great because you got to, obviously we had language learning classes every day, we had cultural events, we had different, briefings about things to expect, and so on. So again, every country is different in how they support their awardees, their scholars. Okay, I see the time. Opportunities to host visiting scholars. So like I said, I previously talked about ways for you to go abroad. If you can't commit to that, no worries. There are a lot of ways that anyone can engage here in Rhode Island, right? And with this, I suggest the visiting scholar programs. Firstly, the Scholar in Residence program. So I'm going to say this right now for the next 5 slides. The State Department is really trying to engage community colleges. And so they're willing to give maximum funding to community colleges to be engaged, especially in hosting people. So what's really great for the Scholar in Residence program and then the next 2 programs that I'm going to talk about is that they will give you almost everything. I say nearly fully funded because you have to still pick them up in the airport, right? Like, you know what I mean? So it's nearly fully funded, right? So keep that in mind as I go through this because again, this is a really great way to build capacity, to have an expert here and to help internationalize your campus. So getting into the nuts and bolts of things. First, with the Scholar in Residence program, this is to have someone who can either be a named scholar, so if you have someone that you know wants to come here, you can write their name in, or you can say, we're willing to host, but here are kind of our parameters of who we would like to host. You can do both, that's very possible. So we don't want to silo you, we want to make sure you have opportunities. Within that, we will say, okay, great. This is for, in your application for the SIR program, you can say we want to host someone for an academic year, or we want to host them for a semester. It depends on your needs and what your department likes. But what's really great is, as I noted, these programs are not only about having someone bring their expertise to campus, but it's also an opportunity to have cultural events, right? So, here, again, I've never been to Rhode Island, so I'm not sure what makes people tick. But, if you're like, what, we're going to the largest Dunkin' Donuts in the States, so put it in your application, right? But of course, obviously there's a lot of things you can talk about being the ocean states. How can you engage folks, right? Are there things that you can do, cultural events that are happening, fun festivals, right? What does that look like? And so think about it not only in terms of having someone here to do, teach a class, but what can you do to really engage students? What can you do to really engage the community? So there's a lot of cool things you can do with the Scholar in Residence program that are really fun. I remember reading an application from some small institution in Iowa, and I remember how they explicitly were like, we're so excited for the county fair. They were like, we really want them to come to our county fair. And I was like, yes, we love the county fair and the tomato festival and all that, you know what I mean? So whatever makes, your place special, highlight that, right? Leverage that, explain that that's how you're going to engage them, right? It's not just about them being in the classroom. And hold on, one thing, okay. With Scholar in Residence program, you can co-host. So the great thing about this is that a lot of institutions, especially community colleges, have been working with four-year institutions to co-share, right? Which is really great because oftentimes that means not only do you get maximum funding, but for whatever little cost that might bear, you can also share that with another institution. So that's becoming more and more common over time. I will say I was intrigued. I think this past year, it was University of Louisville and Harvard co-shared someone where they were at one institution for a semester and then they were at another one for another semester. I've never seen that done yet, and I'm really curious to see how that's, or I think it's this year actually, how that will go. But the great thing about this is, again, you don't have to be geographically close to the institution. That's not a requirement of this. You just have to explain how it will work, right? But in any case, Rhode Island, you have certainly a lot of institutions. We have a colleague from the University of Rhode Island here, right? So you can certainly make that happen, right? Tap each other on the shoulder and say, hey, we're having someone here. How can we engage your institution as well? And that makes it more competitive, right? Because when the State Department sees these collaborations, they'll say, oh yeah, of course we're willing to give more funding once we see these connections. So something to consider. Now we understand that hosting someone for an academic year, for a semester, it might require a lot of buy-in from the administration. It might require a lot of levers. That's okay. But what is a good stepping stone to hosting someone for even a short amount of time, it's called the Outreach Lecturing Fund, OLF. And what's really cool about OLF is that these are short-term travel grants for 2 to 5 days. So what's really great is we have, again, about 900 visiting scholars in the US every year, right? What's really cool is you can go to fulbrightscholars.org/OLF. You can see the list of people. You can see all the visiting scholars, where they're from, their disciplines, and so on. You can say, wow, there's a visiting scholar in Kansas City who is doing math, right? They are doing this. Why don't we invite them for 2 to 5 days to Rhode Island, right? And they can come to RCI and URI and do all sorts of fun things, right? You can do that. That's very possible. The State Department can say, great, as long as you apply 30 days out, you can do that. So that's really cool, is this is an ongoing program during the academic year, right? This is a rolling program. So again, it's low stakes, maximum cost, and a really, again, effective way to have people here. You just have to, the one thing is you have to cover lodging and local transit. So that's something that you really have to think about as, obviously three hotel stays co-shared with RCI and URI is a lot cheaper than having someone, be here for an academic year, depending on what that looks like. So, if you know people abroad, right, if you know folks who are international scholars, they have to apply through the Visiting Scholar Program through their host country. So they have to apply through the U.S. Embassy or Fulbright Commission abroad, and that's the way that you can bring them here, right? So what you can do is they can name you, and you can name them, and then we can match. So we can facilitate that for you. The last program I just want to briefly touch on, is the Fulbright Language Teaching Assistant Program. I don't know if you have language departments on campus, great. If you have global affairs, anything of that nature. But for the language departments, you can bring what's called a Fulbright Language Teaching Assistant to campus. This is a great way to have a native speaker on campus. What's really great about this program is, again, we're trying to give full funding to community colleges, specifically for the FLTA program. So again, here are some links and some emails for folks. This will be shared with you, so don't worry, you have to write this down. I'll provide that. Briefly, I did want to mention there's some other Fulbright programs for you to go abroad. The big thing I want to talk about is the Fulbright Specialist Program. Cassandra, you and I were talking about this a bit before the presentation began. The Fulbright Specialist Program is really unique in the sense that it's like the Scholar Program. We're looking for professional specialists in the fields to apply. But what's cool about this is that these are short-term experiences. So these are 2 to 6 weeks. You apply to be put on a roster for 3 years. On that roster, people might reach out to you and say, hey, we'd love to have you. You're doing, psychology. We're looking for folks to do a psychology workshop. Could you come to Uzbekistan for 2 weeks, right? And you can say, sure, yeah, why not, right? So that's often a lot easier to do than the Fulbright Scholar Program. And a lot of people who don't have connections love the Specialist Program because they can make those connections abroad and use that to make a Fulbright Scholar Award. So again, this is a really cool program. I don't know, for the student programs, you do have to have a bachelor's degree or soon to have a bachelor's degree, a 4-year degree. So I don't know if CCRI does grants, associate's degrees, but if you know people who are transferring, definitely if you know students who are transferring, tell them about this opportunity. As again, we have plenty of folks, plenty of students who are started at a community college who do participate in the program. If you know K through 12 teachers, we do have programs for them as well. The big one that I like to highlight are the Teachers for Global Classrooms. That's a really great way to have a teacher do a project abroad. So again, if you have colleagues who are K through 12 teachers, there is something for them too. All right, I've talked a lot. Truly an hour, I said 40 minutes, that was an absolute lie, but I got you. I got you good, that's all that matters. There are ways to stay connected with the Fulbright program. Scholars@iae.org, that's our email. Our website is Fulbright Scholars. And you are, of course, I encourage you to sign up for our monthly newsletter. Our monthly newsletter is where we have all information about when the competition opens, giving you application tips, sharing more about the upcoming webinars, office hours, and so on. We also are trying to share more alum stories. So again, we're trying to get real people, in your face and say, look, we have someone from Tacoma Community College in Seattle who did this project, right? You could do this too. So again, great resource. All right. Ooh, Lord, my pearls. It's been a day. So, what are the questions? What are your interests? I want to hear all of the above.
Is all these, they're all international, right? There's no going to a US, another institution?
Yeah, unfortunately there's not. No, yeah. No, we don't. I dream for a program like that, Fulbright's in the US, but unfortunately we don't have that. Yes.
I have a question about the timeline.
Love it.
February 15th is when it opens. Does that mean the applications are now viewable?
Yes.
And that's the first day the applications are viewable?
Yeah, generally, traditionally what we do is we post the awards like February 1st. Okay. And then the application usually opens up in February.
So you can look around, make a plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Shop.
Great.
You can shop around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our Black Friday is February 1st.
I have a question for Rachel, actually.
Yeah.
You have to apply for sabbatical to get a Fulbright.
Yeah.
The deadline's I think their deadlines are more than
Yes,
sabbatical deadlines.
that is a policy thing that Liz and I are gonna be working on.
Okay.
Yes, we are aware of the mismatch in timelines, so, yeah, we're gonna work on it. We will have more information soon, I hope.
Yeah, I know that I've been doing a lot of community college visits in the past year, and I know a lot of institutions approach it differently, right? It's because obviously every leave policy is different. I know I was actually recently at Pima Community College in Tucson, and they have a very conservative leave policy where they only give 4 sabbaticals a year, right? I don't know if CCRI is similar, but what's really interesting, excuse me, what was really interesting is that they managed to work out a program where they actually have a lot of international connections. If they can bring someone to campus, they can get that leave, right? So it's kind of like a switch. I don't know how, I've never seen something like that. I don't know if CCRI.
We had one in the math department, I don't think it was through Fulbright,
Right.
but we had someone from another country come, and someone from our institution went there, and the person that came from international went upstate.
Right.
So,
That's
do you remember who that was?
No.
I think he came from England, actually, but they swapped, and then he stuck around after.
I love that.
So, but it wasn't Fulbright, I think it was just an exchange with another institution.
Yeah, but the point being is I've seen institutions do that, where that if someone comes into the department, they allow like the Fulbrighter, like awardee to go. So that's something that you could, I don't know what that looks like, but that's an idea. Just trying to share it, but yeah. You look like you have a question.
I do. So I have a question for you. At the end, you had group projects. That
Yes, the
was
group pays.
sweet.
The Fulbright pays. Yes, the Fulbright pays group project, I'm listening.
So what does that consist of? Is that you're doing, let me back it up. I used to do service learning projects in Portugal
Okay,
through CIPIT.
okay,
Fabulous experience for the students.
Right.
It'd be about 2 weeks. In my understanding, a Fulbright Scholar Award is much longer than that, like a semester or a year,
generally.
versus these projects that could be shorter, smaller, etc.
Yeah, the group projects are generally also longer, from my understanding. I will say the Fulbright Hays, which is a lot of the group projects, so let me take one step back here. When you apply for a Fulbright, you apply as an individual, right? So you, just to let people know, sometimes people think that you can actually apply like
As the college.
as like a group or an institution, but you cannot, no. You apply as an individual doing the project because it's assumed that you yourself are going, right? The Fulbright group, Fulbright Hays group projects, I admittedly know the least about because that's within the Department of Education, right? And my colleagues and I work with the State Department. So I wish I knew more, right? Fundamentally, from my understanding, like yes, you can do again, like a consortium, like you can get a cohort together to do these projects. I just don't know how long they are. My understanding is that they're a few months, but I would have to look at it again. I truly have not looked at Fulbright. You're the first person who's asked me in 2 years about Fulbright Hays. So I don't know.
And then the specialist award,
Yes, Fulbright specialist.
the
What's-
difference?
Yes, what is the difference? It's a really good question. So Fulbright Specialist, firstly, is a completely different Fulbright program than Fulbright Scholar, right? And the cool thing is you can apply to both. So that's just something I want you to know, and I encourage you to do so, is that there's no eligibility requirements saying that you can't. In fact, we explicitly state on our qualifications page that you should, like, we encourage you to apply. The only caveat, you can't do, if you get accepted to both, you can't do the projects at the same time, right? You cannot be in 2 places at once, contrary to popular belief. So that's something you have to keep in mind, right? But the specialist program, again, the eligibility requirements are much broader, right? Usually this is limited, again, to PhDs or MAs who have teaching experience. The specialist program allows a lot more professionals. They don't have such rigid degree requirements. That doesn't necessarily exist. Let's see. And so the specialist program, again, in that way is much more open. Additionally, it's host institution driven, unlike the scholar program, which is applicant driven. So host institutions abroad are going to the US Embassy and saying, look, we want an expert to be here for 3 weeks in basket weaving, right? And they can say, great, we can post this on the Fulbright Specialist page and try to link someone up. So that's the cool thing about the specialist program in that way, right? Obviously, the programs are 2 to 6 weeks, so that makes it a short-term opportunity, right? So that's a good, and it's a good thing. And I don't know, I think people tend to look at the short-term opportunity and say, yes, that's for me. But the issue is it's host institution driven. So you have to be very mindful that this is on their time in some ways. Now, I will say that you can create your own Fulbright Specialist award, right? Excuse me, again, you're on the roster for 3 years, so you can reach out to host institutions abroad. Or if you have a connection already and say, hey, if you submit the application to have me come for this 2 to 6 weeks and name me, I can go, right, through the Fulbright Specialist program. So that's something that people have done, is they create their own awards. So the specialist program is really open, right, in that regards. So it depends, but that's generally the 2 differentiations. The scholar program, again, is you present the project, you're accepted, you do the project you presented.
And are you allowed to take students with you?
That would not be funded.
Like that specialist program?
No, none of that, no. The specialist program is you going abroad, teach for, it's usually teaching. The specialist, I'm glad I did not clarify that, so I'm glad you asked. The specialist program is usually just, it's teaching workshops, lecture series. Like you're like a visiting professor. Like that's kind of the energy of the specialist program. So you will do these workshops for 2 to 6 weeks, and then you'll come back to the US. But again, you can, oftentimes Fulbright leads to bringing people, but the Fulbright money only funds your, whether it's specialist or for scholar, it only funds that individual to do the project, right? Again, I see why you're asking about the group projects, because that might be a great way to try to bring students. Now, the great thing about any of these projects, a lot of times Fulbrighters do the project, come back and say, great, how can I actually go, right? A lot of people do establish study abroad. Again, we don't provide the funding for that, but there are ways to navigate that, I imagine. So that's unfortunate. I wish we could, be very generous.
I'm just, in my head, I'm thinking about, so the way this was done, it was a class, so they got course credit. Part of the class, 2 weeks, we were in Portugal. They were doing service learning projects with organizations in Portugal. We were assisted by SIPID, who helped make the introductions, dealt with the embassy, did our accommodations for us, blah, 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 and then there was a course per student. It's that cost per student that scares me, even though for my students, it came to, I want to say like $1,300 all inclusive for them for 2 weeks, maybe. That was airfare, meals, entertainment, accommodation, like the whole ball wax. But for our students, that's very difficult.
Right. No, I understand.
Right. So
completely.
How do we make that connection so that they're getting
Yes.
that international experience? Because when I tell you the difference it made, most of those students that I took, and I would take about 10 to 12 at a time, had never left the state, let alone been on an airplane.
So we do have one State Department program that might be of interest for students that can apply. It's a bit different because it's a student applying as an individual to do some sort of study abroad, but they do provide funding for that. So I don't know if you've heard of Gilman, the Gilman program. Oh, this is great. Oh, my colleagues at Gilman are going to be so happy. So the Gilman program is a great way. It's specifically for community college students, different students from different minoritized backgrounds and so on, that are like, this is money for them to do student, like Pell Grant recipients, all these, right? Where the Gilman program, G-I-L-M-A-N, the Gilman program provides funding for them to do study abroad. So what you could do is you could attempt to organize something where you have, maybe, I mean, this is a long shot, but nevertheless, you could still see what the group projects are about, right? Because again, I'm not as familiar with that. You'd have to look that up. But you could have students apply to the program through Gilman, get a Gilman scholarship to cover the cost of that, right? And especially if people have not heard about it, then that's, again, we're looking for geographic diversity. So this is something where we'll say, oh my gosh, there weren't a lot of Gilman applicants from Rhode Island or Gilman awardees. This is a priority. So again, that's something that you could get a lot of students on board with by doing that. I mean, realistically, I don't know how many you're expecting. I think it's still, they still have to apply.
And you kind of have to limit because,
Yes,
you know,
of
it's
course.
herding cats when you're in a different country, they've never been there and the rules are different, you know. So 10 is really a good,
Yeah. You might be able to get some of them to be able to have Gilman money for that. So that's an idea. But either way, the Gilman project, anyone here should talk to their students about Gilman. Yeah.
What is covered if you get a Fulbright scholarship? Like,
Yeah.
what's not covered? What's covered?
Yeah, so when you apply, what happens is when you, firstly, that says in the award benefits. So I didn't mention that extensively, but every award has their own award benefits tab, and every country's amount is different. But you receive a monthly stipend, right? And some countries adjust it based on where you'll be, factoring in inflation and so on. So there's a lot of different parameters around what that looks like. But no matter what, if you are selected, they give you an award document that states exactly what you'll get for your monthly stipend. So that's the first thing, right, is that monthly amount. And that doesn't go through CCRI, that goes directly to you, right? So keep that in mind. You get a monthly stipend, that amount varies from country to country. In addition, you can have dependent benefits. So as I noted, 60% of our awards have those dependent benefits, and that varies anywhere from additional $200 a month to additional $500 a month. It just depends on those countries and what that looks like. In addition to dependent, and I will say some countries will also give you tuition waivers. So I know in sub-Saharan Africa, if you are, for example, bringing school-aged children with you, they will give you up to $25,000 per 2 children, or $12,500 per child, to have them go to a school in those places. So it depends, right, on those benefits. Lastly, you have ASPE. It's called ASPE Emergency and Sickness Insurance. So it's the emergency insurance, but it's not full coverage. So you'd have to see if there are ways that you could perhaps have international insurance as well, just to be safe. So it's up to you to decide on what that looks like, but you do have that ASPE insurance. And then, yes, some awards also provide teaching allowances and book allowances. So sometimes they'll just give you just like a full grant to say, okay, you have an extra $1,000 for your for books. The only thing is we ask you to leave the books in the host country, right? Because obviously you want to ideally give something to them, and the airfare, round trip airfare.
Do they provide lodging too, or you have to organize that yourself?
It depends on the country and the award. So when it comes to lodging, every country, every institution is different. The money that we give you is meant to cover the in-country expenses. So that monthly stipend will ideally pay for
lodging,
for that.
food, yeah.
Right. That's the idea behind it. Again, you can do whatever you want with that money. We do not follow up with you, right? That's between you and the IRS. So you do that, say, okay, yes, I'm gonna, I don't know what you're gonna get, but you can do that, right? Because people do often spend it on, we'll say, okay, there are places, I'm trying to think, I mostly work in Europe and sub-Saharan Africa, and some of my countries, it's like $8,000 a month, and the cost of living is like $100 a year. So it's one of those things where people are like, oh wow, I have all of, I'm obviously less than my salary back here in the US, but still I'm saving relatively all this money, and so people will use it for different things, right, in that regards. It just depends, again, on the awards. Monthly stipend, benefits, sometimes research books, research teaching allowances, dependent benefits. That's, I think, everything. Yeah.
Taxes must be interesting coming back and then trying to submit taxes.
It is taxable income, yes, and the IRS has a specific Fulbright site. So we link to it in the Fulbright page to the IRS website because they do talk about Fulbright specifically. Obviously, I cannot give tax advice. Just gotta stay that for legal reasons. I'm forgetting something. Oftentimes they cover visas too, the cost of visas.
Okay.
So, or they'll explicitly say that. So, say this visa costs $50 and we're covered. So. When I was abroad, just to give you context, excuse me, when I was in Bulgaria, I also they cover the cost of visa. They gave us a language. It's rare. Not many countries give scholars language allowances. But some do. Some might give you an extra $100 to learn a language because it's going to cost you $5 to pay for a tutor. So that's possible. It just depends on the country and so on. But yeah, I mean, for the students actually make a tenth of what the scholars make. When I was in Bulgaria, I had my salary was $1,000 a month, but my rents and food costs were $100 a month, like for a month.
Awesome.
Yes. So needless to say, I was like, oh no, €5 flights to Greece. Oh, no. If you insist, you know what I mean? Yes.
And how about bringing somebody in to here? So Sudabi, I'm thinking of the goal of having the math department, right? Having others in the area of assessment or, things like that. Maybe this is an opportunity.
Yeah.
We would host that person for the couple of days. Requirements around that, or other than, we pay hotel or something?
Yeah, for the outreach slot, so that would be the outreach lecturing fund, which is where you can bring someone for 2 to 5 days, right? And the requirements is just the lodging and the transportation. That's all. They get the State Department pays for their per diem and for their flights. So they just have to be visiting scholars that are currently in the country.
And to match them, so it was something very specific, math assessments. How do you assess a math program? Or is there a little bio on each of these folks?
Yeah, you'll be able to see that information as well. Or if it's not explicitly there, like it's easy to find. Like we do provide those resources. Have you done a lot of?
I've looked into it for URI. If you go on that website, you can actually download an Excel sheet, and it has all of the Fulbright scholars who are currently in the country, and it tells you their name, email address, education, and it also gives you a little bit of background on what they do and what they're here for. So you can just download that and make it look for the specific information that you're looking for, like the field or specialty.
Great.
You can contact them if you want directly, but you do have to submit an application.
Okay.
It's really simple application too. It doesn't take you very long. And you can, again, you just have to apply more than 30 days from when you want to host them. Obviously, it's in good faith. I try to give them a little bit of warning, so they're just not like, oh, you're going to Rhode Island. Congratulations, Usually people reach out to them beginning initially to say, hey, could we have, would you be interested in coming?
And what you can ask them to do, is there a, guardrails? It's
No.
just lecturing, it's curriculum development, it's whatever.
Whatever we'll ask you obviously in the application, but there's no guidelines behind it. It just has to make sense, right? Obviously it's like, oh, we're going to have them, we have this, they're doing math assessment, they're going to come here and do woodworking. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't make sense, obviously. But, as long as you have a cogent argument of why they should come, then likely we will go get their funding. I don't know many people who have been turned down, honestly. We really want people, even in the US, to have an expansive experience. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I have one more question about the specialist program.
sure.
You sign up for to be on the list for 3 years.
Yeah.
Is that a one-time and then you're off the list, or could you be requested to come multiple places?
Yes, okay, so the specialist program. So firstly, I will note the specialist program has, I'm going to take 2 steps back because this might help you. Firstly, you can, there are, I think, 6 deadlines a year on the specialist program. So essentially it is rolling, right?
Okay.
You apply and you go through 1 peer review, right? And then you are put on, after you, if you are accepted to the peer review, then you are put on the roster for 3 years. During that 3-year period, you can hypothetically do up to two tours, I guess, 2 experiences, 2 Fulbrights. It's possible. Because if you do, for example, 3 months in, you see a project, and you're like, yes, great, I'm going to go to Peru, right? You come back from Peru, you still have almost 2 years, right? 2.5 years. Excuse me. The only thing I think of the specialist program, and again, I'm going to say that because I don't work on that program specifically, I'm not an expert. You'd have to look at the website. But from my understanding is you have to wait, I think, a year after you've completed your project. So there is, because again, we don't want people just keep the same people doing the same projects over and over again, right? So I think it's a year or a year and a half. But people have been finagled up to Fulbright, awards in that 3-year period.
Okay.
And once that 3-year time period is ended, I think you have to wait a year before you can reapply. I don't necessarily
Just
know.
like the other programs.
Right, I don't know if it's a year or 2, but you have to wait. There is a wait time. So,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Yes. Again, the Fulbright Specialist website will go into that completely, so, yes.
Any other questions in the room or online?
Rachel, can I just briefly share, can I just go to, I want to share the Alumni Scholar Directory for a moment?
On a browser?
Yeah, on the web
Okay.
browser. Can you just share your screen to the web browser, and I'll just take a moment to show the website? I'll take literally 30 seconds. Okay. Thank you all. Okay, so I just want to show what the website looks like, just so you know how to navigate it. So, I thought you were already there. Look at that. Okay, so, can you see? Okay, perfect. So with the Fulbright Scholars website, it's pretty straightforward on what to look for, and so I think so, but I will go over it with you. So with the FulbrightScholars.org site, the place that obviously where you can find resources is firstly underneath the awards. The awards is where you can see the U.S. Scholar Award search, and this is where you'll see all opportunities. So again, we only have open awards, which is the IEA awards, because they have a slightly different time frame than the rest of the program. But we do have our closed awards, or you can show all of our awards from all of the places. So I know, Cassandra, you said Finland.
Yep.
So you can see Finland, all the awards from Finland last year. And so you can say, okay, there were 20 awards in Finland, so on, here are opportunities. You can filter for more. There's that, I'll let you play with that. The one thing that I want to show you is the Scholar Directory. The Scholar Directory is a really great resource because fundamentally, if you don't have international connections and you're looking for connections, you can say, okay, essentially start backwards, right? To say, who has done projects before me, right? So say that we're going, well, firstly choose program. We're doing the Fulbright US Scholar Program. And then we're going to go do math. It sounds like math is a prominent field.
Three math people.
3 math folks. And so we're going to search, see what's an academic year, so most recent. So where have people done math projects? So we have one here at Charles University in the Czech Republic. Someone went to Panama. Someone went to Armenia. Someone went to Vietnam, Romania, France, Slovenia, Mexico, Hungary, right? You can just see all these different places. And for example, if you're like, okay, I'm curious, what did James Sellers do in Budapest, right? So you can see here that he applied to the award, the Budapest Semesters in Mathematics Award at the Renyi Institute in Math, right? He did research, I do not know that James can anyway. But you can say, we have very brief information here, but what's really great is that you can say, cool, their title was, well, it wasn't that exciting, but you can see, okay, great. They did number theory, right? I do number theory. Maybe they can tell me and share their connections. And alums are always excited to talk about the Fulbright, right? Who doesn't want to mention, the semester they spent eating goulash and having a grand time by the menu, So again, reach out to the folks listed here and say, hey, James, I saw that you did this project. Tell me more about it. And the great thing about talking to alums too is that they can help you create a competitive application by sharing the pitfalls of their own projects. So they can say, hey, I really struggled with connecting with students in this way because there was clearly a cultural barrier, a cultural context that was missing, right? And you can say, great, I can think about it when I create my own application, how I'm going to devise, my own teaching method or so on. So again, the alums have because they went through that, they understand the process, and they can provide a wealth of knowledge. We don't, and this is a common question I get, we do not provide samples or, previous Fulbright US Scholar applications. We do not do that. Because fundamentally, every discipline is different, every application is different, and we don't want to silo people. That being said, alums have willingly shared their project statements with people, and you can do with that as you please, right? That's between you and them. So that's something that's a great resource as well. I will note too, you all have Rachel's information, but in case you didn't, we have what's called underneath U.S. institutions, the Scholarly Network. And bless you. And you can see by state, institution, city, like where you are. So we're just going to take a trip to Rhode Island, because we all are Rhode Island here. And so, oh no, this needs to be updated. That's weird. This has happened once or twice.
Is that current ones, that there's no current ones?
No, that's current. It just hasn't been updated. Yeah, that's unfortunate. But what's happened, I'll tell my colleagues about this. Sometimes it's a little glitchy, I must admit.
Liz and I argue.
Yeah. I don't know, that's not what I wanted. Oh, where's the pen? So what you can also do is search by institution. So, yes. So it's really great. Yeah, it has Liz's name. So apparently we don't have, you said you do an alum of the program. I guess we haven't had any alums.
Yeah, Bobby Gondola worked here, he's not currently working here, but he went for
He's at
activities.
URI.
He's at URI
He
now.
went through, that's a good question. I've been emailing him because he recently went to URI. He did his Fulbrights with Johnson and Wales.
I think the second one, I think the first one was with us, but I'm not sure.
How do you spell their name?
G-O-N-D-O-L-A.
Like they've been.
Oh, like on the,
Yeah.
here's what comes up. I always love searching fun things on the website here. Well, there's only Charles.
I don't think that's him.
No, that's not him.
But
No.
Taco Cowboys. I have so many questions.
Wow.
So many questions to the DRC in 2008. Oh man, this is why. Now it's really funny. I get this kind of question a lot. People sometimes will ask me about like controversial projects. You can search a lot of things in the search, and you'll be shocked to see some of the projects people do abroad. I'll let you play with that in your free time. But people, I mean, you have academic freedom, right? I mean, you have your constitutional rights. You have to follow local laws when you are abroad, of course. And you have to be mindful about the political situation there, right? And that's really important because in countries where they might not have such, I don't know, they're not as libertine with their academic freedom, you have to be very mindful of what your project will look like. And that should go in your project statement, right? This is obviously very crucial, especially for research, or if you're teaching a course that might seem reactionary, right? So that's something that you need to think about when you do that.
You said some of the programs look specifically for community colleges. Are they community colleges abroad that are looking for other community college faculty?
It varies. The thing about it is obviously every higher education system is different. And so this is why with Denmark, we have that kind of floor, like they built that community college award because they have a very similar system. So it just depends. But indeed, there are a lot of places that are saying, yes, there are community colleges abroad who are looking, the equivalents that say, yes, we want community college faculty as well. Because I think there's an interest of saying not only this idea of universities participating, but also colleges. So more and more connections are being made between institutions abroad. And you can, I could probably search the community colleges of Jamaica. Barbados is a prime example of an award that has specifically lists community colleges that are interested in hosting folks. I'm trying to think. We have a community college award in the British Virgin Islands. Ooh, Cassandra wrote that down.
I worked on Denmark too.
Yeah, we have, what is it, the HSV 11th British Virgin Islands Community College Award. So that's, it's easy to find, it's not the UK award. But yeah, that's a 2-year institution that wants community college faculty to participate. You're like, oh, yeah.
You can't bring pets with you, I'm assuming.
That's a really good question.
It's gonna be
That'd be
complicated.
hard.
I know some of them make you like quarantine them. Have a backup plan for pets.
So that is between, I'm sure there are alums who have brought pets. And I know this because I know from my own time in Fulbright, there are people who brought pets from Bulgaria back to the US. So indeed, it's possible. It's just you would be facilitating that.
Yeah.
And you'd have to work on, because the EU is probably one of the strictest places where they have like different requirements. Like you have to, like my friend, so long story short, my friend adopted a cat in Bulgaria, brought it back to the US, but she couldn't get the cat without having it like licensed by the European Union, have a passport, and then, there's a lot of paperwork. A lot of paperwork. From our perspective, because we're not necessarily thinking about that or used to that, it seemed a little bit foreign. But some countries might look for like a vaccine record or like a proof of like a birth certificate or something like that. So.
I've got to see a passport for a pet.
I know,
What does that look like? That's amazing.
I don't know, but the answer is you could definitely. Great.
No questions are coming in online.
Okay.
And, okay?
You answered all mine, thank you.
Yeah. Again, if you have any question, feel free to reach out to Rachel, feel free to reach out to scholars@ied.org, and we'd be happy to get to you. Right?
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you for being attentive. I was actually really like small groups because it's always like, I can try to give you hands-on information compared to if it's a group of like 50, and it's like, okay, well, there's a lot of things, so yeah.